What we'll talk about today is food destinations or gastronomic destinations. I think that at a time not too many years ago, if somebody had said that they wanted to go to Copenhagen to sample the restaurant scene, it would have been a joke. And I can say that I come from Denmark, and nobody would travel to Copenhagen to just for the restaurants. But now it is a cornerstone in the tourism board's strategy. It's something that the restaurants really thrive on. We see a vibrancy in the Copenhagen food scene that we hadn't seen before. And that is very largely driven also by the tourists coming into Copenhagen and putting the money into the market and demanding new concepts and new ideas. We see that also not only in Denmark, we see that in Singapore, we see that around the world, we see that in Lima, in Peru. We see that even in Bolivia, where we also have a restaurant. Bolivia is one of the poorest countries in South America. And still, if you put in a nice restaurant that makes a change, makes a difference, people will travel to sample the food and to experience that country's gastronomy. So it has an enormous impact, a potential impact, on restaurant economics, and of course also on investor economics, for growth and for the profitability. So I think it's a very good topic to discuss at this conference. So I'm very glad to introduce a really strong panel to talk about this. First of all, Jonathan, that you already met. And I think what you don't know about Jonathan is that he started out as a corporate lawyer. Yeah. But luckily for us, he redeemed himself and went into this business. Second is Gwendal, Poullenec. And Poullenec, sorry. Yes. Gwendal is the Director of International Development for the Michelin Guide and has been with the Guide for a long time, since 2003, and most recently also been involved with the entry into Asia. So I think that you're the one who's driving all this development, so look forward to hearing about that. And then we have Ali. Oh, you're over there. Ali Borhani. Ali is the founder of Incubeemea, and that is a boutique strategy advisory firm with a solid track record here in this area and in Iran. I think that we're going to hear more about Iran. I think that's going to be a very interesting subject. Incubeemea helps corporations in formulating interest strategies, in growth, and also in innovative deal structuring, and in a number of industries, but hospitality and restaurant is one of them. And you have a background also as a sales and strategy executive with a number of high-end and international companies, such as Siemens and Bosch. So I think we have quite a good breadth in experience here. And I will ask a few questions, and I will also turn over to the audience, and hopefully we can have a good discussion, not only about what you feel is important, but also what you feel is relevant to hear from your situation. So what I want to ask first, maybe I'll start with you, Gwendal, is we've seen this trend for a number of years. Is there still mileage in this? Is this still something that people will travel for?
Yeah, definitely today what we can say is that food is one of the leading attractions for travel and tourism. And the food experience is key to attract tourists, of course, but then also to retain them. And a good gastronomic experience it's key to turn a traveler into a promoter of the destination.
And how do you see that? I mean, you are operating not Michelin-style restaurants, but something that attracts, you say, in a short radius around your bars and venues. But do you see tourists traveling to London to visit you?
Not yet, and we need to do something about that. I mean, when we set up London Union, one of our aims was to try and help establish London as the greatest food city in the world. And I think it's top 2, 3, 4 or 5 maybe. but it doesn't yet have that reputation from top to bottom. I think about 8 years ago, I was approached by government of Malaysia to help them with their reputation as a food destination, because they were looking at Thailand. And if you come from the UK, you know that the food in Thailand is fantastic, because you have Thai restaurants in London and in the UK, which are great places to eat and drink, but you don't have Malaysian restaurants. And they wanted to set up a chain of Malaysian restaurants throughout the UK to get British people used to Malaysian food, so that they would then be happy and comfortable going to Malaysia to eat and drink, because it's familiar and it's enjoyable. But I think tourism is massive. I think London's got to be one of the most visited cities in the world. And what we've tried to do with our markets is capture, a really wide selection of great eating and drinking in London. Then you can do, it's like a one-stop shop. So if you want to experience a lot of what London has, you can come to us. We have great Vietnamese restaurants. We have great Indian restaurants. We have 1 or 2 great French restaurants, and you can get them all in one place. That was kind of the atmosphere we're going for.
And what about, you're working with Iran, and if I'm sort of a layperson in this sense here, and I think of Iran and Persian cuisine, and it has all the right start, at least, for becoming a food destination. How do people look at it there?
Well, I guess in case of Iran, it's a very peculiar story. Many countries have to create a destination. In Iran, you can find 5 or 6 destinations, because in the northwest, you have the Turks with the Turkish food and cuisine. In northeast, you have Turkmen. South of Caspian, you have the Gilaks. In southeast, you have the Baluch. In southwest, you have the Arabs. And in the central, the Persians. So from a cuisine and variety, there's no shortage. Part of the handicap of Iran's food and beverage, and its opportunity, in my opinion, is one of the sectors that got frozen since 1979 till now was travel and hotel and hospitality. So every other industry attracted foreign direct investment or local investment. But you had the revolution, people didn't travel 2 or 3 years after that, then there was 9 years of war, then there was a quiet period, and then the sanctions came in. So the hotel and hospitality didn't manage to attract the necessary dollars. Having said that, the market is catching up very fast. Together with Bench, we held the first International Hotel Investment Conference back in February, attended by 290, and the hosts of today, Accor, Rotana, everybody else. And I think there's a tremendous pull factor when hotel and hospitality comes, and part in that story, I'm not separating food and beverage as an independent sector, but bringing that element into it. One thing I want to just touch on and stop there is that you have a population of 80 million, 65% are under the age of 30, 125% mobile penetration rate, and 6.5 million iPhones. Go figure out. So they're very connected, they're very active on social media, and they enjoy being together. And some of the ticket prices that you were talking about, Jonathan, £15 and plus £15. They cannot have booze, obviously, in public, but they don't shy away from spending on food as well.
Interesting.
If I just can come back to the example of Thailand, you just mentioned, Jonathan, I just referred to an article recently published in Thailand. Thailand, the problem for the tourism authority of Thailand is to create revenue with tourism. And definitely the sun is something free. And they just noticed that a really important part of the tourism revenue is due to the food expenses. And they are really planning to invest in the food business. And they are asking the Michelin Guide, for example, to come and to expand in Thailand. In their mind, they expect on the focus on the food to have an impact of 10% of the revenue per capita. Just increasing, the quality of the perception of the quality of the destination. What is important with food is it's an attractor, not only to bring more people, but to create value with the tourism coming to Thailand.
That's interesting. So that raises the question, so the Michelin Guide, the role of the Michelin Guide. Do you come in when a destination has emerged, or do you come in and create that destination?
Well, definitely it's a good question. So I would say shortly that the Michelin Guide is neither the chicken nor the egg. We can be regarded as a booster that will help the destination to hatch out.
Booster or the rooster?
Booster.
All right, just checking.
To hatch out. And the Michelin Guide is impacting the industry both on offer and demand. On offer because, of course, it creates emulations between the chef. So it increases the quality of the food, the local food offering. And also on the demand because the Michelin Guide is key for promoting the destination. We are not creating the restaurants, but we are putting the light on the best addresses. And let's refer also to the basic definition of the star within the Michelin Guide. We say, okay, 1 star definitely is providing, I will say, local and national awareness. 2nd star is regional awareness. And definitely, the 3rd star provides restaurants with an international awareness.
Except when you gave the 1 star to the hawker traders in Singapore, that became really international. I mean, that incredible reaction to that all around the world, I think, and almost transformed the idea of visiting Singapore as a food destination in the minds, certainly of a lot of people in London, I think. Really put Singapore as a food destination on the map by just that one. I can't remember the name of the guy now, the soy chicken, whatever his noodle place that everybody wants to go to all of a sudden. In fact, we're doing an event at Hawker House with Singapore Airlines, and we're desperate to get that guy to London so he can try his food. That's just because of one move by you guys.
But it's a very good, Singapore is a very good and recent example because the guide was released only last year.
Yeah.
And we found out 2 star restaurants within the Hawker Center.
Yeah.
And what is very interesting here, it's a typical local culinary experience. And it is definitely what the travelers are looking for.
Yeah.
I think, if I may add to that, when we talk about hotel and hospitality or tourism sector, we say 1 in every 11 or 1 in every 10 jobs is from travel and tourism. I think it behooves all of us in this room as well to look at the impact of the food and beverage within that context. We are in a region that has to create jobs and employment. So I think food and beverage is a net contributor to economic dividends and to the stability. And the world is getting more complex. I don't think I would just jump into an airplane to go and have a hot dog with everything that is happening around the world. But once you are there, things that people like Jonathan are doing is fascinating because that ability to bring people down to earth at a level that everybody can bond and blend, and without any intimidation, I think grassroots, bottom-up, food and beverage concepts can be a healer in the world that we're living in today.
I wanted to go back to a little bit what you said, Jonathan, where you said you were approached by Malaysian authorities.
Yeah.
So the question is, if you are not in a food destination right now, but you want to create one, how do you go about that? If you are the restaurateurs or you are the investors involved in that market, what's the best way to kickstart this whole revolution?
It's very difficult. I mean, I think you need to attract talent first. You need to attract, great chefs, restaurateurs who are dedicated to a particular, city or region, and you need to create, an environment where they can flourish. I think, one of the first things I did when I got to Dubai was I wanted to find like a local restaurant. I mean, I can eat at some amazing restaurants in Dubai, and I already have, by the way, but I can eat in the same restaurants in London. And I wanted to find somewhere that was truly local, and I don't really know where to start with that. And I think, opening a Hakkasan or La Petite Maison in Dubai is great for the international traveler, but also there's a lot of international travelers who would want to come and eat like a local.
Yeah.
And in a nice restaurant, in a nice environment with good service and, et cetera. And I think focusing on that authenticity of the local market is really important. And I think the other way is, we've all been turned on to Peru recently. Martin's here, with ceviche and andina in London. And, now we understand, and you said you have something in Lima. Now we understand what Peruvian food is like. And 5 years ago, I didn't know anything about Peruvian food. Now it is one of the top international destinations for eating.
Yep.
And it's on my list of places to get to. I've not been there yet, but I'd really like to visit. And then the other thing is get these guys involved.
Yeah. Any other comments? What can you do as a local restaurateur or investor?
Maybe I think, of course, talents are key. When Michelin is looking at a restaurant, at a quality restaurant, what we will be looking first at, of course, the quality of the product, then the mastery of the cooking and flavors, where talents is needed. Then, the balance in flavors. But I will add also 2 important points, which are value for money. Because or professional inspectors, when they go to a restaurant, they do it as any other customer. They are anonymous. And they will experience also the quality for money of the food. And we have to know that, of course, the international travelers has got a lot of benchmark. He knows what it is worth. Okay. So the value for money is key in the global experience. In the bill is at the end of it your last memory of the reference. Okay. And then consistency. And consistency, when we are looking at a new destination to cover, is maybe the most difficult point to achieve. For us, the consistency means that a same places, the same restaurants, is able to deliver quality over time. One day, but 1 month later also. So it's very important for us, consistency, before being able to step in a new market.
All right. We have a few minutes left. Are there any questions out from this one there?
Hi, I have a question for regarding the Michelin Guide. Previously today and before, we know that the millennials are the new customers. They are the one moving forward. Do you have a report how many millennials are basing their choice of restaurant on the Michelin Guide, or is it they have different base that they choose their restaurant from?
Well, your question is quite difficult to answer because we do not have specific data about it. But what we know is that a customer is looking at various sources of information before making its own decision. And the Michelin Guide is to be part of them. And the population, the age of the population using the Michelin Guide is really, changing from one country to another. For example, in France, people buying the paper guide are, people more than 50 years old. But if you look at Japan or Singapore, people are looking for the Michelin Guide information through the web. And of course, they are much younger.
Over here. This microphone coming up.
Thank you. First of all, thanks for this panel. I think it's the most schizophrenic panel I've ever seen. From street food to Michelin to Iranian sanctions. So,
thank you.
My question goes to Gwendal. We've been helping a Michelin-starred restaurant in Paris that's been doing very well, and we've uplifted it and helped it as much as we could. And it really, shows in both sales and reviews and everything. But a year later, it went back, you know, the sales are starting to be much higher than before. And do you have any advice on when the star doesn't help anymore, is there anything else you think we can do to, I mean, it's a very fine edge between going full marketing and preserving the star, you know, uniqueness. So anything we can, any advice you can do on that front?
Okay, I'm not sure I really get the point, but if we have any advice to provide to the restaurants, we really advise the restaurants to look at their customer, to work for the customer and not work for the star. Star will follow if quality is there, but star is much more results than the beginning of the story. And within the Michelin Guide organization, we would prefer a restaurant working quite well, rather than better than a restaurant looking for the stars, but at the end of it, that is empty. So the main advice for Michelin is focus on your customer.
Thank you.
I think there are stars and there are shooting stars. So.
You mentioned something, yeah.
No, I think, you know, for instance, when you look at the role of Michelin coming to Iran at the moment, just for the sake of it, I'm being a bit playful here. Iran has a lot of challenges and a lot of opportunities. Just to give you a figure, every Nowruz, which is the New Year, 30 million people domestically travel. 30 million people move around. 20 million of them go to another city, which is northwest. And still to this day, if you compare, I said this to the session yesterday, Tehran is 15 million population, 4 times the total Beirut population, Lebanon population. Iran in totality doesn't have the number of restaurants and concepts in Beirut. So I think the basics within the region, as Jonathan was talking about, and Gwendal, are not all on the same part. So I think the foundations of the right mindset, the right scalability for investing in a market of that size, consistency that Gwendal was talking about, and human capital, and to your schizophrenic point about integrity and credibility. When a market opens up, a lot of people want to improvise. It's the flavor of the month. Let's go and let's do it. If we get it right, we get it right. If not, we walk away. But it's extremely a challenging market and extremely a rewarding market if you get it right. So on behalf of that cuisine and that part of the world, I think our worries are not about stars. It's about right models, right scalable concepts, and fast casual dining. And on franchisors in the room, I say focus on numbers of jobs. Don't get fuzzed about your bun that has to be shipped pre-cooked because it's a landmass half the size of India with agricultural base and producing meat and agri-food. Focus on scalability and on job creation. That's the ticket to the entry to the market.
I think we had one question here.
Hi, I have a question, Mr. Borhani. If you want to have an idea, like an expert, about investing in Iran, do you consider Iran a big opportunity or a big risk?
I think depending. I mean, in every sector you look for people, it will remain a big risk, and you cannot change that mindset. For certain people, it is the greatest opportunity. I mean, just to shift sectors, because we advise companies in various sectors. Procter & Gamble left, Unilever stayed. Siemens is back, heavily investing, my ex-employers. LG and Samsung never left. In 2011, Iran was the 10th largest global market for Samsung electronics. So when you say to some of the brands that it's a risk, they don't buy that, and when you say it's an opportunity, they may not run for it. I think it's very much dependent on the model, on the industry you're in. Food and beverage is to a great extent a non-intrusive humanitarian sector. You cannot deprive people even under the harshest sanctions for eating. So I don't think anybody would have a script in the next sanctions bill that burgers are banned. And a lot of companies are finding legitimate legal structures, Jonathan can advise us there, of how to approach that market. But I think in totality, it's the greatest opportunity for its young population and unsaturated market. So.
From our own experience also, the quality of the food market is really driven by the demand, by the quality of the customer. Before appealing to international traveler, a destination need to attract local people to the quality restaurants and to create the full culture.
So true.
And then it can turn to an international reference. But that's really key. And let's give another example, maybe back to Europe. But when I joined the company 10 years ago, Germany was considered as a foodie destination. Today, Germany is full of very good restaurants. And within the past 5 years, the number of star restaurants has increased by 30%. And it has been really driven by the local demand.
Well, on that note, I think we'll have to stop here.
Excuse me, can I say?
This is a
Can I just ask one more question?
yes.
Can I?
Take the
Can we-
microphone.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about. So you've got the stars coming from the Michelin Guide. We're also seeing like 50 best restaurants of the world list by San Pellegrino. There's all these lists coming out, but the process by which these rankings are given are completely intransparent. And as a restaurateur, sometimes I doubt some of the restaurants that have been given these high rankings, and they go from literally no tables per day to like 200 covers. And as a restaurateur, I'm a little bit concerned about the integrity of some of these lists and what actually is going on in terms of how the selection process is taking place and how these restaurants are being given these accolades and awards and rankings. I just wanted to see if you could address like what's happening in that environment and that the impact on the industry and what's a responsibility of the industry from an integrity standpoint to address those issues.
Okay, I will not talk about the methodology of the
Very
listing.
short.
But within the Michelin Guide, we have been using the same methodology for more than 1 century, based on professional culinary critics, fully employed by Michelin, experiencing the restaurants and paying their additions, their expenses. That's only what I can say. But what is key to fairly assess restaurants is to avoid the one-man show, is not to involve one single person decisions, but to create a collegiate decision of professional people only able to give a fair judgment on the quality of the table.
Right. Thanks very much. And I will let you go now. Thank you.